This is the video lecture for Chapter 4 in your textbook. I have a lot of slides for this presentation, and I know you have 2 chapters this week, so I'm going to go through this presentation a little bit more quickly than usual. In this chapter, we discuss macronutrients and micronutrients, as well as essential nutrients. I'll talk real briefly about enzymes, but please make sure that you understand your book. And I'm going to leave this one alone and let your book talk to you about malnutrition. Okay, this whole topic of nutrition revolves around the idea of food. Not only is food delicious, but it's also nutritious, and that's the crux. We need to eat not just because we're hungry or bored, but because we need nutrients. Nutrients provide us with the chemical building blocks to build molecular structures for our cells, as well as the chemical energy that we require to live and grow and reproduce. Energy is broadly defined as the ability to do work. Next week we'll dive further into the different types of energy when we talk about photosynthesis and respiration. But for now, what we're talking about when we say food energy is potential chemical energy. This energy powers our cellular activities as well as provides us with the energy to build complex molecular structures. Let's start with macronutrients. These I find easy to remember because we need them in large or macro amounts. In addition, they include some of the macromolecules that we've been talking about, like carbs, proteins, and fats. Macronutrients, being so large, are not useful to your cells in the form that they come in through your food. Before you can do anything with your food, you have to break it down into smaller subunits. Then your body, your cells, can use those subunits. This whole process of breaking down larger molecules into smaller subunits is called digestion. We're going to go through each of the macronutrients and discuss their role in nutrition. First, we've got carbs. Carbohydrates are important both structurally as well as energetically. Carbs form cell structures such as the cell surface markers that I talked about in Chapter 3, Lecture 3.1. Also, they form a part of your nucleotides in your DNA. And things like plants have cell walls made of cellulose, which is it's a carbohydrate. Carbohydrates are also the main energy source for our cells. To be used for any of this, though, again, it has to be broken down into its monomer, or it's a monosaccharide. The primary monosaccharide is glucose. It's the one most often used in textbooks to explain what's happening. Here you see them in this diagram. These hexagonal shapes are representing glucose monomers. Glucose is particularly important because it is the only molecule that your brain cells can use for energy. Luckily, your body can turn fat into glucose if you're in a period of famine. Likewise, if you have a surplus of carbs, your body can turn those carbs into fats for storage for later. All carbs provide 4 calories of energy per gram. I want you to notice calories here is capitalized. That's on purpose. It's for a reason. A food calorie with a capital C is the equivalent of 1,000 calories with a lowercase c. 1 calorie with a lowercase c is the energy required to heat 1 milliliter of water by 1 degree Celsius, which is not very much. And when we're talking about the energy required to power a human being, such a large, complex, energy-demanding organism, those aren't practical. So we use a kilocalorie, 1,000 of the little calories, or just call it a food calorie and capitalize the C. Proteins are also very important, particularly structurally. These, of course, need to get broken down into their monomers, which, remember, are amino acids. And then we can reconstruct those individual amino acids into whatever protein we need at any given time. Some uses for proteins are cell structures, such as the membrane transport proteins that we talked about also in Chapter 3. The cytoskeleton is protein, as well as enzymes. Enzymes are very important. An example of an enzyme is amylase, which is in your saliva and helps you to start breaking down carbohydrates before they get to your stomach and the rest of your digestive system. Proteins provide a little bit of energy as well, the same amount as carbohydrates. Please don't discount lipids. Nobody likes fat except the way it tastes, but it is very important for your body to have fat on it. These fats are obtained through your diet in the form of both fats and oils, so lipids, but we don't usually eat waxes, so we're talking about fats and oils here. Recall that lipids do not have a repeatable monomer subunit, so instead they get broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. And these pieces can be broken down further for energy. They can be stored for later in something called adipose tissue, which is fat tissue, or they can be used for cell structures. These are important. We need these lipids for the structures such as our cellular membranes. That includes both the outer cell membrane lipid bilayer as well as the lipid bilayer surrounding all of our organelles. Lipids are very energy rich. They have 9 calories per gram is what they provide us with. That's more than twice the amount of carbs and proteins at the same mass. That's why when we store our chemical energy on our bodies for later, we store it as fat. We can hold on to a lot more energy without as much extra weight. Right, the fourth macromolecule is not a macronutrient because you only get these in small amounts and you only need them in small amounts. So nucleic acids that you do eat, they are broken down into the monomer subunits, nucleic acids, and you can put those back together into whatever you need. You do need to remember, especially for the next unit, Unit 2, that DNA that you eat is broken down. You don't incorporate DNA from your food into your own cells when you repair a cell or divide it or anything like that. For example, you can't just eat a banana and then use banana DNA for your own cells. Fun fact, bananas and us actually share about 50% of our genes are identical, but you don't use banana genes in your cells. You break down any DNA that you ingest in a banana, for example, and you reconstruct it into the right sequence to form your own DNA and RNA. Oh, also, we do not get any energy at all from nucleic acids. They're strictly structural. Micronutrients are those that you need in smaller amounts. Also easy to remember because micro means small. But these are just as important as macronutrients for cellular functions. There are 2 broad categories of micronutrients. We have both minerals and vitamins. Minerals are inorganic, so no carbon backbone, no carbon-hydrogen bonds, and they serve 2 primary functions. Minerals can serve as cofactors, which are used to activate enzymes. So they really enable enzymatic function. An example here is iron, these red dots here inside of a protein molecule called hemoglobin. Remember, enzymes are proteins. So in order for hemoglobin to function, in order for hemoglobin to carry oxygen to your cells through your blood, through your red blood cells, they have to have that iron in there. In that case, iron is functioning as a cofactor. Minerals also provide us with electrolytes, such as sodium and potassium, both of which are very important for nerve and muscle function. Vitamins are organic, so we've got carbon and hydrogen and all that. These function as coenzymes. Same thing as a cofactor, except it's organic. So a coenzyme helps with enzyme function by activating the enzyme. An example is vitamin B8 down here. When you see a molecular diagram like this one down here, when you see just like these dots, or sometimes they won't even have those. It's just anytime you see the lines intersecting with each other, that denotes a carbon atom. So here we have a carbon ring, a hexagonal carbon ring. It's very commonly seen in nature. And then what you notice as well is it's ignoring this. There's actually another hydrogen here on all of them. Recall that carbon forms 4 bonds. So here's 1, 2, 3, and the 4th is right here. They just don't show it because in organic chemistry, you get a little lazy and you leave off little C's and you leave off the extra hydrogens, which are assumed to be there. Anyways, vitamins, organic enzyme helpers. Okay, now essential nutrients. These are nutrients, whether macro or micro, that your body cannot synthesize. So the only way to get them is through your diet. There are, for example, 20 known amino acids. They make up every protein that we've ever encountered in all organisms. Our genetic code is what tells our body which order to put amino acids into to make a protein. And there are only 20 amino acids, which are entirely universal. Bacteria have the same genetic code as humans, which have the same genetic code as fungi. Okay. Now, a lot of amino acids, most of them, just over half, we can construct them basically from scratch in our cells, but there are 9 that we can't. The only way to get them is through our food, so they're essential nutrients. We have to have those in our food so that we can construct all the proteins that we need to live. Vegetarians and vegans have to be particularly careful about getting these essential amino acids. If you've ever been on that type of diet or are now, then I'm sure you're aware of that. Without meat, which is a very rich source of these essential amino acids, you gotta look other places. This is also why these diets, particularly vegan diets, are not appropriate for infants and young children, because there isn't an alternative for those. You hear really sad stories in the news sometimes about a newborn dying of malnutrition because their parents wanted the baby to have a vegan diet and fed it only apple juice or something, and that kills babies. Don't do that. Okay, off of that topic. All the processes that we've been talking about are only half of the sum of all chemical reactions that occur in your body. What we call that, all the chemical reactions in your body, that's called metabolism. Digestion is a type of catabolic reaction. These are reactions that break down larger molecules into smaller molecules, just like we've been talking about. Anabolic reactions do the opposite. They take smaller subunits and build larger molecules out of them. An example would be DNA replication. We take nucleotides and build them up to construct whatever sequence we require for our genome. I like to remember these 2 things with a fun mnemonic. I actually got this from a student, so it's pretty fun. The cat broke the vase, and Anna put it back together again. It helps. Or you can remember, if you've heard the word anabolic, steroids help you really pump up. It's because they're building structures, particularly muscular structures in that case. In addition, I want to talk here about enzymes a little bit. Enzymes are required for any metabolic reaction to occur. So enzymes are very important because any chemical reaction happening in your body is going to require an enzyme. Without enzymes, none of this stuff will happen and you won't be able to live. And also, enzymes are very specific. Okay, so one enzyme can only catalyze one type of reaction. So that amylase enzyme that I told you about in your saliva, the only thing it can do is break down starch and start breaking it down into glucose. It can't do anything else. It can't build glucose back up into starch or anything else. So it's very specific. However, enzymes can perform whatever their function is, that one reaction, they can perform it multiple times. They're reusable. So this diagram shows you an anabolic reaction. It's taking two subunits, putting them together, and now you get a larger molecule built up, so it's anabolic. And then notice that this enzyme is ready for more. Here's what they call it. So they're reusable, but only for the one reaction that they do. Okay, now that you've got some basic cellular and nutritional knowledge, I want you to go and use it. Your assignment this week is the personal nutrition assignment. What you're going to do is record everything that you eat or drink for the next 2 days so that you can average 2 days together. And you're going to assess your diet, what nutrients you're getting. Then, for the discussion, you're going to pick a diet like vegan or paleo or whatever, and discuss the attributes of that diet in discussion 3. Should be fun. What we've talked about, macronutrients and micronutrients. We've talked a little bit about essential nutrients, where you get those from. After this video lecture, you should take the Lecture 3 quiz. Remember, that covers both chapters 3 and 4, and both 3.1 and 3.2 video lectures. After that, make sure that you record your diet so that you can do the personal nutrition assignment and then contribute to the discussion. Happy and healthy eating!